Welcome to Preventing Brand Slaughter, your go-to show for discovering authentic, leading-edge ways to drive employee retention, elevate customer experience, and dominate marketing and sales targets without unknowingly killing your own brand. Tune in to lighthearted, transparent conversations featuring today's leading industry experts and entrepreneurs, breaking down stories of screw-ups, successes, and nuggets of wisdom every business owner or leader should know at heart. Let's get this show started with your hosts, Eric Sims and John Giuliano.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Preventing Brand Slaughter, the podcast dedicated to helping businesses and people all around the world end the number one silent killer of businesses everywhere, which is brand slaughter, the act of knowingly or unknowingly conducting business in a way that actually kills your own business via poor CX, poor talent, poor technology, poor best practices. So today, we're very fortunate. We have an awesome guest on the show. His name is Marc Bernstein. He is the CEO and founder of Balto, and he's also the host of his own podcast, which is called Reimagining the Contact Center. So it's going to be an exciting show. Stay tuned because there'll be lots of gold here today on Preventing Brand Slaughter. Hey, like I said, welcome to the episode. We've got Marc Bernstein from Balto here. Marc, great having you on the show today.
Eric, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man, I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last, year or two. Was fortunate enough to actually be a guest on your podcast, which was awesome. Reimagining the Contact Center world, I think is that what it's called?
Yep.
Yeah, and so I think it's a great take you've got on just looking at the business differently, and challenging people to do that differently as well. Like it's not just you, But to back up for our listeners, can you just share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then what's Balto and where'd it come from type thing?
Yeah. I'm the founder CEO of a company called Balto, and it analyzes sales and customer service conversations live while they're happening. So we'll hear everything that a representative says as they say it, everything the customer says as the customer says it, and in real time on that representative's computer screen, we'll give them recommendations for how they can be as effective as possible. So a customer calls in and they got an issue with an order, and they said, my order never arrived. Well, our software will hear that and automatically pop up resources, instructions, responses right there for the representative, saving them time, making sure that they are treating that customer well and treating that customer as quickly as possible, because most folks just want to get in and get out, get off the phone and get what they need. And cool. I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area. Moved out to St. Louis for school and started the company out in St. Louis. Shout out to St. Louis, great city. Basically, I had talked to a mentor of mine right when I was graduating and said, I want to start my career. I don't know what field to go into, but ultimately, I think I want to start a company. So give me some advice on where I should start. And he said sales, because if you're starting a company, you're either selling to get your first customers. No one's going to do it for you. Yep. You're either selling to get financing and investment because you need to fund the company somehow, or you're selling talent to get people excited about your vision and want to join the team. So I started out in sales, which is where I personally experienced the problem that Balto solves of getting out of your coaching session with your manager. You got some great feedback, some great advice. You get on the phone with the customer and you forget everything that you had learned 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah, it's the old Mike Tyson thing or whatever it was. It's everything's great till you get punched in the face, right? And and we've experienced that a lot with. I did too. You get on the phone, you've gone through training as a salesperson, and then somebody says something you weren't prepared for, or you just get shock jocked, and you freeze in the moment. So it's Balto's I think is an exciting addition to the CX world, right? And I mean, when I say CX, is our version of that is like CX is the new sales, right? There's really all lumped together today. But I think the cool part about it is how it's designed in a way to assist the agent, but there's so much more to it than that when you look at how it protects the brand and the way that it impacts both sides of the coin. I know you guys have been doing this for a minute, but maybe can you share an example or two of, or just your philosophy on like what it does from outwardly facing for the customer? Like how does it enhance the customer experience, which also enhances the brand recognition or brand experience?
Yeah. So I'll actually start back with a piece of advice I got from a marketing leader about 5 years ago. And I was talking to this marketing leader and I said, we need to improve our brand. Let's improve the logo, let's improve the colors and what kind of words we want to use. And he said, that's great. I think that's all important stuff to do. But your brand is really the compilation of experiences that people in the market have with your company. So and who are the most important people in the market? It is your customers. So you want to create a brand, sure, work on your logo, sure, work on your color scheme, work on your messaging and your language. But first off, work on making sure that your customers are your best ambassadors and are as happy as humanly possible. So we try to apply that mentality to our customers because our customers are serving their customers, right?
Yep.
So when you use a technology like Balto and you have a sales or customer service organization with thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in some case, millions of conversations with your customers, each one of those could be an opportunity to get the customer more bought in, more excited about your brand, go, wow, that service was great. Or, actually, I kind of would like to add on a new product. Each one of those can be an opportunity. It's also a giant freaking liability. It's, not even just a compliance or legal liability where, the legal landscape, all these things you can say, can't say, can do, can't do, but also it's a liability of you piss off the wrong person and they're blasting you on Twitter. They're telling all their friends that, they never want to work with you again. And, you think you lost one customer in the moment. Well, you might have lost 3, 4, 5, or, who knows how many. So making sure that all of those customer conversations, or as many as possible, are going exactly the way your company wants and the way that their customers want. That's the real power of our software, is to be able to understand those conversations and scale out the right stuff so consistently you're talking to your customers in the way you want to.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful because when you think about the challenge of business as they scale and grow, right? And going back to what you're talking about, like when you're like, hey, I'm going to start a company, what do I need to do? And your mentor said, hey, you need to learn how to sell first, right? But when we're all starting our own businesses, like we're doing a lot of it. So it's us, our heart's in it. Our message is our message, and then as you bring people on, you have to filter that message down. But the larger you get, the more challenging that becomes to have those front end people say the things that, quote, you would say and treat customers the way, quote, you would treat them as a maybe 100, if not thousands of employees out there. So having something that allows them to speak your words through their voice in a way, right? And whether that's through text or voice, I think is something that gets missed a lot, right? And when you think about something like Balto, like, oh yeah, he's not gonna say anything wrong, or it's gonna correct him when he says something wrong from a compliance standpoint, and that's good. To your point, lawsuit prevention is very good, right? But more importantly, the voice of the business is being spoken consistently, and we know from the studies that you've done and from the studies that most of the CX community has done. One of the top 3 things is message and brand consistency is crucial in today's world.
Eric, you mentioned the voice of the business. And I think that sometimes people forget that literally the the vocal voice of the business happens when you're talking to someone in customer service or talking to someone in sales. And think about like a retail location, you go into whatever your favorite store is because you want to go shopping for a new wardrobe. If that associate that you talk to engages you and, tries to understand what you really want and gives you the time of day, that makes you feel good. And that's the kind of the business communicating to you saying, this is what we're about. Yeah. But if they say they look like they're too busy for you, or they dismiss you, or they just say, yeah, go look over there, and they point you to the corner, that's also the business communicating what they're about. So how can businesses make sure that their voice is consistently the voice that they want to use rather than whatever happens to be used in that moment, because people have on days and off days? And can you help people make sure that they are delivering the voice the business really wants?
Yeah, I think another thing that's interesting about what you guys are doing that's I would call is brand slaughter prevention would be the aspect of like how fast new information. Because one of the challenges with companies is, hey, we've got employees all over the place, or we've got dialers all over the place. Even if that's in one building and there's hundreds of people, right? You've got to be able to get information out to those people, have them be able to access that information and use that information. And that's always been a complaint and challenge out there. Is yes, there's a diminishing return on that. Like we get a few people in and then it goes to kind of downhill. Balto creates a scenario where information's input, it's put in front of everybody simultaneously in a way that they've been trained to read and utilize that information. So not only creates consistency, it enhances speed of accuracy, right? Of being able to say, hey, whether that's we have a new offering and we want to make sure that everybody knows about it, or whether it is, hey, we want to change the way we're saying something, or something with it, we're getting customer feedback, we need to alter this. Like all that gets faster. And I think in today's world where customer demand is growing increasingly at a skyrocketing rate, but things move fast, that's a huge advantage. And how did you guys, is that something that you specifically put in place when you were designing this around that? Can you chat up a little bit about that?
Speed is more important today than ever. And if you truly think about, at the highest level, kind of being a little bit in the clouds with it, what are the things a business can focus on? It can focus on costs. It can focus on quality. It can focus on, volume and being able to deliver a lot of something. It can focus on speed. Over the last couple of years, speed has become like a true advantage or a liability. If you're a customer and you're just looking around at your favorite brands, do they feel slow? We kind of equate slow as customers to detached from reality, to backwards, to not in touch with what the customers and market really needs. We equate slow with not really what we want. We equate fast with innovative. We create fast with in touch.
Reliable.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know if I'm on a call with a customer service person and they're like, hold on, let me look this up, or hold on, let me check on that. It's a turnoff, right? And depending on how long that is, but the ability, to your point, to be able to say, to answer a question almost immediately, if not immediately, it builds trust.
It absolutely does. So we've gone like really hard on speed. And even to the point where all of our products are named real-time something. So we have real-time guidance for agents, real-time coaching for supervisors, real-time quality assurance for the quality assurance team, real-time note taker, which automatically creates summaries of calls so agents can save time taking notes. We are constantly measuring how fast the software is able to pick up what's happening in a conversation and deliver the recommendation to the agent. And right now it is 200 milliseconds is about how long it takes to hear what's happening and reply with a recommendation.
Wow.
We are all in on speed. And I think that's the direction that consumers want in today's market.
Yeah. I mean, it's documented very well. The instantaneous answers, instantaneous results. It's the old adage in sales, right? Time kills deals. And it literally does now on the CX side and either on the sales side. Like people get frustrated, they're done. They're checking out. And again, there's a damage to your brand. Maybe they got their problem solved, right? Like maybe they got off the phone or left somewhere and they got it solved ultimately. But how much friction was there, right? And everyone's looking for frictionless type experiences. So the more seamless and speedy and frictionless you can create those, then that person turns around instead of going, and a meh in this world is the same as your crap, right? They're not promoting your brand. They're kind of impartial to it, right? But if you can get somebody that's like, get off the phone, like, wow, you wouldn't believe this. Like this guy I talked to, like he had every answer I needed, like quicker than quick. My call time, like most people don't measure call time, but I like being on the phone. Like I didn't have to stay on the phone for 30 minutes. The guy got it done in 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever it was, right? So you're speeding up and saving people time, and time's money on both sides of the coin. So I know that's probably some of the stuff you utilize when talking to your customers, which, the people that are using Balto, being that this show's preventing brand slaughter. And being that brand slaughter, we've kind of coined that word, is like the act of knowingly or unknowingly doing things within your business that kills your own brand. That's brand slaughter, right? So being that like, can you chat up a little bit around some of the things that you've seen, and maybe you've heard back from your clients around things that like, hey, this is really helped us out. Like, we've got our brand approval or brand reputation's been improved X%.
Yeah, it tends to most often be the efficiency and the quality scores. Sometimes folks will actually come back with NPS, Net Promoter Score, and actually show improvements there. But because NPS is tied to so many different parts of the customer experience, usually they try to get microscopic with it, our customers, and they say, can I look and say my customer conversations are better? Can I clearly say that they're better? And when we score them and grade them, that they're better today than they were before? And the second is, can I say that they're faster? So, we'll commonly on the quality scores, on a 100-point scale, see an 8-point, 10-point improvement in quality. And that matters for a few reasons. First of all, think about it. If you got 100 points and you were previously at a 90 and then you get 100, that means that out of every 100 customers you talk to, you piss 10 of them off. Can you not piss off 10 customers? And what would it be, what would it do if instead of those 10 customers were happy? That's kind of how you can view, quality scores broadly. But secondly, a lot of our customers are, BPOs, which essentially business process outsourcers, which are outsourced, contact centers. They're doing sales and customer service work on behalf of another brand. Well, that quality score is their accountability.
Right.
That quality score is almost their marketing message to their customers, saying, look how good of a job we're doing serving your customers. Look at how we're constantly improving our quality. So, and these brands, when they work with multiple BPOs, are ruthless. I mean, really difficult. And they'll say, well, your competitor is at a 74 and you're at a 73. What are you going to do? We're going to have to give them more business because they have higher quality. So, we're able to kind of get our BPO customers to move up the ranks and win more business, from their corporate clients.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome value add. From just other than the servicing thing, it's a hey, this thing pays for itself type of model, right? Because you're improving these things, it not only pays for itself for the BPO, it pays for itself with their client. Because John and I had a conversation about this last week. Like, when you look at CX and say, okay, CX is the foundation of our business, right? Like, our customers, people that are paying, are what make everything happen. And so the job of CX is to make sure they're happy, make sure they stay and they're serviced, and hopefully find ways to grow that relationship, right? Which means financially grows. Or the opposite being, it's going to diminish. You're going to have a big open back door. They're going to go out the back. And so the enhancement there of the score going up does multiple things, right? It keeps your foundation solid. In the part that's typically unseen that we were talking about, it's a long way of getting to this point, but is this: when that door is open, that means that your marketing spend and your sales team spend goes up, because where they once had to convert at 18% to get that foundation for you, now you've got a leak. So now they've got to bump their conversion up to whatever, 20, 25%, right? To maintain and just float and tread water, because they're losing them as fast as they're getting them. And there's a diminishing return on your marketing spend, because we all know, we've done marketing for, just because I throw more money out there does not mean I'm getting more customers. It's a competitive market space. So the key is to keep service and build the customer base you have. And I think that's another return on investment based on your model that I think is really important for brand protection or preventing brand slaughter, is that, hey, listen, we're not going to have people going out there conducting business in a way that opens that back door and has people running out, right? Putting more pressure on your sales team, more pressure on your marketing team, and more pressure on your financial model.
Eric, one of the things that Balto deeply believes, it's one of our principles, it's part of our brand, is that the sales and customer service agent of 2023 of today is totally underappreciated as one of the most valuable resources that you have in your business. And if you think about it, think about how much money is like kind of passing through that person's day-to-day experience. And you can imagine that you work at a telco, you sell cable, internet, or you're a customer service agent for cable, internet, whatever. And maybe your average customer is paying you, $60 a month, and you're able to, handle something like 50 calls a day, right? So, every single day you're handling, 50 calls a day times $60 a month. You're handling $3,000 a month, which is $36,000 a year. That's like a car. That's like a Mercedes every single day that person is handling. And that's one agent. So the amount of just money that is flowing through sales and customer service interactions means that getting them right is a giant lever for your business. It shouldn't be an afterthought.
Yeah. So let's key in on that for a second, because I think people get focused on the fact that Balto helps the agent service the customer on the front end. But the return of what you're talking about and saying the environment the agent exists in, because we're asking that person or salesperson or associate, whatever you want to call them, we're asking that person to create experience for someone else, right? Now the question is, what experience are they living in, right? Because it's very difficult for a human being to create an experience far superior to their own experience on a daily basis. They may be able to do it. Like I can throw a birthday party one day a year and create something that's really phenomenal, right? If I was asked to throw a phenomenal birthday party every day, 365 days a year, I'd probably find that challenging, right? No matter, unless I lived in an environment that was like a circus. And I'd be like, here it is, So how does Balto, in its functioning for the actual agent, create a stronger, more secure, or whatever environment for them that actually protects the brand as well?
Yeah. So Eric, I'll start with your birthday party example. It's even harder than that because they're not throwing one, every single day of the year. They're throwing 50 birthday parties a day that are 8 minutes long, where someone comes in angry, not always angry, but that, they may come in angry or skeptical or have a concern or a question, and you have to turn that into a birthday party in 8 minutes, wrap up your work, and then throw the next one. So the challenge couldn't be greater. So we tackle that head on. In fact, Balto's tagline as a company is Agent Performance Unleashed. The first word in our tagline, the first word in our website is Agent Performance Unleashed. We think it's incredibly important to recognize the autonomy of these individuals. Historically, you get a big customer service floor, a big sales floor, you get a contact center, and the culture has been very much command and control. It's been, you must do exactly this, this, and this. We're going to tell you when you take your bathroom break. We're going to tell you, you're reading off a script verbatim, no room to inject your own personality. And that is just, we all know intuitively, not the environment that people like to be in. Having a sense of control, of autonomy, of being able to make a choice in what, and you apply your own brain and your thinking to say, how do I want to help this customer? That's like a fundamental human need. So Balto,
sorry to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
Even more so with the millennial generation that's continuing to occupy more of the workspace. They will not tolerate the other version. They'll leave, they'll go do something else, or even worse, they'll go do nothing at all. They won't subject themselves to that type of environment very long. Sorry, but we had a retention specialist on the show a couple weeks ago, specifically around millennial stuff. And so you're keying in on another way of brand protection with that, because you got to understand your audience being your employees. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Eric, it's totally true. And if you think about it, I think that, obviously COVID was difficult for everybody. But one of the things that I think we all got was this appreciation that life is short and you need to think about how what you can do to just holistically enjoy your life. Because, and we were able to see the converse of that. What happens when you can't see your friends, you can't see your family, you can't, go to your church or your religious group. You are doing all your holidays over Zoom. You can't leave your house. All your favorite establishments, sports, music, everything is shut down. And I think it forced all of us to take stock and say, how do we want to lead our lives? And for us who were in some of the older generations, we've kind of already developed our routines and have our perspective a little bit baked, and it definitely did shake it a little bit. But for millennials, that was their like formative time in this world. And I think that millennials and Gen Z very much took a stand and said, we're going to focus on the things that bring us like joy and fulfillment. And, command and control doesn't jive with joy and fulfillment.
Yeah. 100%. Like I said, that's what we keyed in with on that conversation. And you guys seem to have a good grip on it, but more importantly, have a good solution for, and again, goes back to your podcast, like reimagining the contact center, right? Like when John and I started LEC, that was our take too, was like, hey, people are tired of this model. Like they don't want to come to these buildings anymore. They don't want people breathing down their neck all the time. They don't like working under the condition and the assumption of, you're not smart enough and you're not good enough to do this. So therefore we have to micromanage you all the time. People will step up to scenarios when you empower them to do what they need to do. And to your point, and in creating that scenario, you're going to attract an entirely different type of person, because the person who would never do that job before would now consider doing that job, because you've created an ecosystem for them that allows them to be more authentic and enjoy what they're doing far more.
Eric, and that is becoming the only type of person. And what I mean by that is, look at this labor market. Look at the record low unemployment. We haven't had unemployment this low, I think, since 1962 or 63.
Yeah.
50 years. I just saw this article on LinkedIn now that said the number of open jobs, fewer than 10 million open jobs right now. So the job side of it is shrinking too. Yet people are struggling to staff. Like I was driving down, one of our major highways the other day, and I saw a storefront and it said, temporarily closed due to staffing. And a piece of me said, well, is that a cop out? But but the thing is, that's their lived reality. That's what they felt, that's what they experienced. With what technology is doing and its ability to automate so many of the kind of button pusher functions, it's able to automate so much of the stuff that is quote mindless or routine. The work that's left requires thought and creativity and ingenuity. So that work is becoming much more in demand. And in order to have someone do that work well, you have to give them autonomy and ability to make their own decisions. Yeah.
Well, and looking at, again, one of the things that we always challenge people to do is, we've talked a lot about customers and how customers want seamless and frictionless and those type of things. Well, the company's first customer is their employee, right? If you view it that way. So what Balto does on the inside to me is it creates that seamless, frictionless, speedy experience for the agent, right? And then in turn, it gets created for the end user customer as well. But the first piece of that is that you're able to keep an employee. To your point, they're hard as hell to find, right? They're even harder to keep. So if you've got an environment where you're empowering people to be autonomous, you're empowering them to be successful. But the other complaint with millennials is they want the tools and the information to be able to do the job, right? They don't like being thrown into the deep end of the pool and saying, figure it out. That's a huge complaint. They're not willing to work their butt off. They said that they are willing to work their butt off. They are willing to learn, train, grow, have mentors, all those things. But one of the challenges that historically business has done is that they throw people in deep in the pool, see who sinks and who rises to the top. Hey, that's our team. And that's not an environment that they enjoy, right? So I think Balto does a great job of saying, hey, listen, we're gonna put something in place that is preventative to that, right? Like as they grow and their information grows, Balto is going to help service that employee.
Not only does the employee not enjoy that environment, it's really expensive. I was
Yeah.
talking to one of Balto's customers the other day, and they're hiring their new training class. So they're bringing in a new class of customer service representatives. And they said they got 20 interviews that they scheduled. So they scheduled 20 interviews. 13 showed up. So 7 people didn't show up to interview. Out of the 13 people that showed up, they gave a job to 9 of them, 9 out of 13. And then, those 9, everybody signed. They all signed their paperwork. They said, we're ready to go. On day 1, 2 out of the 9 people showed up.
Yeah.
So you can't even run a churn and burn model. What are you going to do? Hope that one of them sinks and one of them swims?
Well, yeah. And
then another 20 people, the numbers don't work out.
It's killing a lot of people out there. Like you've got, and then you think about some trainings that, I'm in the contact center BPO space, that, but we were talking to a client the other day where their training's 10 weeks long. So their challenge for us was we got 2 training rooms. So the most we can train at a time, let's call it 2 in the morning, 2 at night, is 40, right? If it's class for 20, they can't even hire that many to begin with. But they had the same math problem you're talking about, which was we get people in, we've got 5 people that finally start and then 2 quit. Now we've got 10 weeks of 3 people, and we're trying to start other trainings, but you can't get there. Right. You can't get there. And so have you seen Balto? Have any of your customers been able to shorten their training times? Like, with the ability, because you're going to be able to get information repetitively in front of people and help them. Has it enabled them to shorten trainings or anything like that?
It's actually a standard and it's an expected outcome that happens. And it's intuitive, right? Which is that imagine that you're your first day, on the phones as a sales or customer service person. And you have 2 options. Option 1 is you're just on the phones and you're staring blankly in the distance, just trying to remember all the stuff you had. Option 2 is that the second that something important comes up in your conversation, it says, oh, here's how you handle this. Intuitively, we can just picture that if you can look over to the right, or left, wherever you have Balto on your screen, and you go, oh, geez, yeah, thanks. That's the resource I needed. I don't have to ping my manager and ask them a question. I don't have to put the customer on hold. I don't have to fumble through it. I don't have to guess at the response.
Yeah.
It helps tremendously. So we'll often hear, no joke, training times get cut by 25, 50%, because you're able to have someone, talking to your customers on day 1 with the support and resources as if they had already taken all these habits and ingrained them, over, a month or 2 months.
Yeah. Like every time you start talking, I start thinking of something else, of a different way it has to be potentially helping, which is like, you mentioned something and I'm like thinking my call center hat goes on and I'm like, so if the managers aren't having to run down the aisle 900 times a day to answer the same simple questions, wow, how much of a positive impact is that on their world? And how much does it allow them to really focus on the important aspects of the business, right? And also, does it create a scenario where a manager can manage more people, which financially positively impacts the business? When you're talking about an agent being able to get that information, one of the biggest challenges in that is agent fatigue or agent avoidance of calls, right? Mm-hmm. Why do they do that? Because it's exhausting when you don't know what you're supposed to say and you can't find answers to stuff and people are beating the brakes off of you. And then some people will purposely stay away from calls because I'm tired of getting my ass kicked, right? So this creates a scenario where like, I don't have to, even if it's not perfect, it changes the percentage of that experience. It takes it down, right? Which enhances the agent experience, enhances the manager experience. Like it really is a trickle up or trickle over or trickle down effect all over of something that is so, on the surface, you think it is such a simple solution. Like this is a great piece of AI. Oh, cool. Yeah. It does this. But when you really stop and think about how all of that impacts the brand and the voice of the business, it's pretty remarkable. You don't have your supervisor going to the bar or church or his buddy's house at the end of the day, vocalizing his frustration about how shitty business is and how he's tired of answering these. Like that's brand slaughter. Like your guys going out and shitting all over your brand because they're pissed off at the end of the day, even though they're a supervisor. Most people don't think of that. That's brand slaughter. That's a representative of your company out negatively talking about your brand in public.
Yep.
And so to me, that's just other like peripheral protection measures that Balto brings to the table to prevent brand slaughter.
I'll paint a diagram for you, a little bit of like how we picture it. Imagine that you have this diagram, and at the center is the agent. And surrounding the agent, you have their supervisor, their manager. You have their quality assurance team, who's making sure that bad calls don't slip through the cracks. You have the executive and the leadership, and you have the customer. Imagine kind of you have little bubbles surrounding the agent. The way that the contact center has historically been is all of those bubbles are pointing pressure at the agent. The supervisors are saying, hey, are you doing the right stuff? The quality assurance team is dinging them on their scores. The executive team is putting new policies in place to try to restrict agents' activities. The customer is yelling at them. And what we've perceived as Balto is, can we actually align the supervisor, the quality assurance team, and the executive team to be directing help and support, a system of support toward the agent so they can support the customer. Instead of all these arrows pointing in, causing pressure with the agent, can we have support pointed toward the agent, which they can then point toward the customer? So we've kind of built it as this safety net, if you will, to bring all these voices together to enable agents to be more effective rather than pressure them or force them to meet certain standards that aren't always realistic.
That's cool. I like the term safety net. That's really good. So I want to be conscious of time. So I appreciate you spending time with us today. Or with me. John's on vacation. But when you think about, we talked about kind of the current state of Balto and what you guys are doing. Can you open the door a little bit and share with us a little bit about what the next possible versions or explorations or steps for Balto is? Like, where do you guys see it going? What's your goal? What's the end game look like?
Yeah, to take one step back and deliver a very clear and important message to the listeners here. AI is coming. And I don't mean coming in a decade or coming in 2 decades, or you're going to kind of see it pop up here and there and be helpful. I mean that like you're going to turn around in a year or 2 years and go, holy crap, like everything is different.
Yeah.
And if folks have had the chance to explore ChatGPT or OpenAI, I absolutely recommend, search ChatGPT and just see what that tool is capable of. It is incredible.
Yeah.
So Balto is leaning very heavily toward the future, toward embedding generative AI capabilities into our application everywhere it makes sense. Generative AI is the ability to kind of look through some data. That could be phone calls, that could be transcripts, that could be even images. Generative ability to look through that data and create new stuff from it that kind of acts like whatever the previous stuff was. So, there's actually this software called Dolly, and it's trained on millions or maybe even billions of images across the internet. And you could say, create a painting of Eric on the Marlins having a picnic on the field with his family.
Yeah.
And this AI can actually create an image that would look like what I just described.
Yeah.
Incredible. So Balto is saying, can we look through these customer conversations and be able to pick out things and have the AI create things that would be helpful for the agent? So you could imagine, what are the top 10 responses that my agents have given to a particular question? Mm-hmm. The AI can actually look through all the ways the agent has answered these questions. We call this capability Beacon, Balto Beacon. Look through all the ways that agents have answered these questions and says, here's actually the top responses. And what do you know? We're going to create some sentences that your agents didn't directly say, but are kind of similar to what your agent said that maybe you haven't thought of. So this idea of being able to introduce new things to the business, be able to look through large data sets and say, here's what you haven't thought of, here's what you haven't done, here's what you don't know yet is going to be one of the biggest levers going forward. And Balto wants to take that and inject that all throughout the sales and customer service experience.
Wow. So it's in essence, it's what we've always wanted quality assurance to be able to do, and say, hey, we need information back that's valuable, that we can say for sure, if you do this, this will enhance the call. Or, hey, here's the top questions that are being asked, and we know that these are the questions that everybody wants to know and answer. Now, to me, that becomes multifaceted in value, because now I can deliver that back to a marketing department or a front end department. It says, hey, how do we answer these questions further in advance, where you don't even get calls, right?
Yep.
Because people already know this. So that's amazing, dude. So I know that you've got a huge passion for it. Is there anything that you look at today or in the future and say, here's something that I would I'll use the word warn. Here's something I would warn or strongly suggest people pay attention to or stay away from when it comes to the market space, and trying to help them prevent brand slaughter in their business.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, and every business gets caught up in this at times, is focusing too much on what your competitors are doing versus what your customers really need. Like, there is just a constant, keeping up with the Joneses that any business will experience, where you look at your competitors and say, oh, they do that, so we should do that. Or this is how they message it, so we should message it that way. But that might not be what your customers want, and that might actually distract you from the better, bigger innovation, because who's to say your competitors are right? How do you know they made the right decision?
Right.
So I think it is important to keep tabs on what the competition is doing, to filter that into your data set, but don't get competition obsessed. Don't try to follow every single one of their moves. Don't try to play cat and mouse and they build something, you build something. Focus on your customers. That may take your businesses in different directions, but if at the end of the day you focus on your customers and you deliver what your customers really want, your business metrics will show it, and you'll be in a better place than your competitors, who will then be trying to copy you.
What you're doing. Good. That's great advice. So I don't want to even try to put a bow on that, because I think that ends the conversation very nicely. So it's been fun. I always enjoy my conversations with you, period. It's been great having you on the show. If people want to get in touch with you or get in touch with Balto, what's the best way to reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Yeah. So I would love folks to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/Balto CEO, BALTO CEO. Please connect with me. We'd love to hear from you. And you can find our website at balto.ai. Awesome.
And I will say, he's very responsive. He's not the ivory tower CEO that you can't ever find or get in touch with. I think I met you that way. It was just online, crazy kind of chatting and stuff like that. So very good, man. Like, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We hope everybody listening that's tuned in today enjoyed the show. Reach out to Marc, check out Balto for sure. Also check out his podcast, Reimagining the Contact Center World, which is a great, great show. I think you do weekly episodes on that. So check him out. You can find that on any major platform out there. He's got that distributed. So we'll leave it with that. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Preventing Brand Slaughter.
Eric, real pleasure. Thank you.
That's all for this episode of Preventing Brand Slaughter. We do wish you limitless business success as you perfect new ways of protecting your brand through stellar employee retention, killer customer experience, and unprecedented sales and marketing. Get more valuable advice on brand slaughter prevention that helps you avoid messing up your brand by listening to more exciting discussions at lec4u.com. That's LEC4YOU.com. Never miss another episode, and be sure to get your business-savvy friends to listen as well. We hope to see you on the next one. Thank you for listening.